Hello, everyone. My name is Vala Afshar, Chief Digital Evangelist, and your co-host for a special edition of Disrupt TV. Here today, January 16th, Martin Luther King Jr. Day. I am broadcasting from Boston. My co-host, Ray Wong, is at Davos. Ray Wong, best-selling author of Disrupting Digital Business, CEO, co-founder of Constellation Research, columnist for Harvard Business Review, Forbes, ZDNet. Welcome, Ray, from Davos.
Hey, hello, and you guys are probably trying to figure out, are we really there or not? And the short answer is yes, we are. We're having bandwidth issues. We hope it's going to get better than this, and we'll find out. But happy to be joined here with my other co-host, Vala Afshar, as everyone knows, Chief Digital Evangelist at Salesforce, #1 CIO influencer, and I believe #1 CMO influencer too. So definitely rocking it in all fronts. We're here for the special live edition of Pre-Davos, and I'm joined here with the CMO of Wipro, who you saw on Friday. So Naveen, say hi.
Yeah, hi Vala, how are you?
Naveen Rajdam is our, let's say, the third co-host of Disrupt TV throughout this week at Davos. Naveen is the Chief Marketing Officer at Wipro Technologies, one of the largest digital information technology services in the world. Thank you so much for joining us, Naveen and Ray. I know you guys are experiencing bandwidth issues. Hopefully tomorrow we get to see beautiful Davos' background. But given the theme of this year at Davos, responsive and responsible leadership, can you tell us a little bit about why you are at Davos and your observations after day one?
Yeah, definitely. So as everybody knows, what's happening here at Davos, a couple of things. Xi Jinping, which is China's head of state, is actually going to be here. It's one of the big announcements here. He's basically trying to position China in a much more leadership position in a multipolar world. That's one of the big things that's happening here. We're definitely seeing a lot of conversations about Western countries and populism popping up. There's definitely top interest in technologies around IoT, AI, robotics, definitely up there. So lots of booths, lots of presentations coming about that area. And then we're also seeing some interesting trends that are tied back to gender equality. And I think those are probably the big things that you kept hearing today on my end. What are you hearing, Naveen?
Sure, thanks, Ray. And in terms of the big themes here, I would agree. In terms of technology side, when I look at it, things it's AI, of course. It just feels like that the world has started to embrace AI or the application of AI into the real business, which is definitely a positive sign. It's not seen as a threat, but more as an augmented system, which can definitely help you. So that positive behavior we are seeing, at least the people we have met so far. The other thing is, of course, as Ray talked about, gender equality. I think that's going to be a big point, and there will be some subtle elements of a reconfiguration of globalization. As one of the terms I heard a couple of times, reconfiguration of globalization in the era when countries are talking a little bit about nationalization or localization part. What would it mean? Because globalization would still be very important for the overall well-being. So those were the two main themes I heard so far here.
Yeah, and we're doing it's crisp here. It's like we're talking about weather in the teens. There's snow kind of coming through, a little bit of sunshine. So it's definitely a cold walk and a lot of warm conversations.
That's fantastic. So Naveen, you've always believed that the powerful technology brands are built on human principles, and that's how you lead, and your team leads nearly 200,000 employees at Wipro, in terms of becoming more digital and becoming more people-centric brands, and what you've called in the past a B2I, business to individual. Do you sense that responsible leadership, that theme will include a narrative that is people-centric, where leadership understands it's less about control and more about collaboration and co-creation of value?
Yes, you bet, Vala. I mean, I'm seeing more application of it than I ever saw. Because the leadership styles are getting more and more distributed. I mean, especially in the world where, you know, the basic phenomena of globalization is getting challenged, whereas technology is enabling much more and more of globalization, or more and more global connect of people, that you can reach out to anyone and everywhere, and you can build organizations in a different way. You know, we definitely, I mean, I personally see that, you know, that is going to be largely. Give you one example, you know, our acquisition of Top Coder, which is like one of the largest online communities, you know, in terms of crowdsourcing communities, in terms of building the software. When you see some of their projects, when you go to their website, you will be amazed that even in this virtualization and all those things, how people globe are connecting, are creating some fabulous applications. You know, which are either controlling, you know, trains on 2,000-mile long track, and, you know, without any human intervention. So you know, I'm seeing it more as a religion, B2I.
Yeah, and that really, if you think of all the stuff that, you know, if you think about all the other stuff that Andy's covering as well, right? Making that happen on the IoT side, there's definitely a lot of stuff going on. And, you know, and one of the big themes last year was Industry 4.0, which they're carrying over. And, you know, we've got Andy here as well on board. So Andy, tell us a little bit about Industry 4.0 and where you're seeing it and some of the Davos tie-ins.
Well, hi. Industry 4.0 was the German government stressing the importance of manufacturing to their economy, and therefore wanting to help really try to form a German industry-wide initiative to adopt IoT. It's come to mean a lot more than that, but I'd just like to link up to the AI for a moment. It's also worth remembering the fact that if you want AI to work in many cases, you actually have to have a conversion point from an analog world to a digital world for AI, and that's IoT too. So when we look at Industry 4.0, the big focus has been on manufacturing. And as part of that, the move has gone from saying we can instrument a machine, which has been going on for 20 years plus, and only seeing the information in a fairly contained way around the machine. The goal now is to see it as a whole flexible manufacturing environment where the factory flexes and uses the assets of all the machines well, and to think about extended value chains of German economy. Now, German economy is very heavily committed around the automotive industry and truck industry. So they're also looking at how does that flexibility, that process link flow across the entire environment. And that's where, when you've got that kind of big picture, that's beyond human control. That's when artificial intelligence, augmented intelligence, machine learning, that's where it fits.
So, Andy, what you're saying is that the shift from analog to digital world, where the expectation is for artificial intelligence and some of the data sciences you mentioned to go through the discovery, prediction, recommendation, and then full automation, is a need for sensors and Internet of Things to be able to provide the wealth of data in order for AI algorithms to provide insights and actions. Is that a fair summary of what you said?
Yeah, think about a factory and think about production planning. And instead of having a production plan and looking to see the outcome with standard reporting as we do today, you'll be running the factory much more on a 30-minute type basis of decision making. So we've talked about agile enterprises for a long time, but in the manufacturing sector, they're beginning to actually understand how they're going to really be able to achieve that.
And as you've talked about some of the initiatives with the German government in the US, the industrial Internet of Things, where GE has very much shown the way in 5 market segments with its slogan, the power of 1%. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yes, with all of these things, if you just throw technology at a subject, it generally misses. You have to do something to make it focal and real and make the initiative actually mean something to a boardroom. Well, in Europe, the German government did a good job with Industry 4.0 and got them going. In the States, of course, there's less government pressure to do these sorts of things. And GE has very much stepped forward and been seen as the I don't know, the conductor of the orchestra. And they've used this very good slogan of the power of 1% and said, if we could get an improvement in the 5 industry sectors which GE plays in for doing their normal business, what's 1% of an improvement worth to us? Well, of course, it's worth millions and millions and probably billions. And they've used that to inspire the boardroom to think differently about how that adds value. Now, if you're going to go into a boardroom and start talking about changing the cost base by 1% or changing the revenue base by 1%, you're going to get a lot of attention. And it certainly has produced in manufacturing industry, stateside and Europe, very clear programs in all the major companies and a great deal of boardroom attention.
So is this, for Europe, do you think this is the big transformation that should be coming through, or you think there's going to be other places where IoT is going to take place, like in energy or utilities or in other, service-based retail type of industries? Because it seems to be this is heavily manufacturing based as opposed to some of the other industries.
I think it started and more quickly to move into a boardroom topic in manufacturing, simply because it was easier to identify from the long history of industrial automation how it would take it to another level. If you move into other industries, it's a bit less obvious. You've got really 3 focal things that you can say drive something happening. You can say either you empower people to be more effective, and you have Salesforce who are doing a great job with using IoT to do that, or you can say I'll make a machine more effective, and in that case you can think about anything from mining equipment to petrochemical to transport to even how you operate a hospital. They all have basically got a lot of assets and a challenge to manage the use of those assets better. And then finally you have the idea of, can you make the process better? And this is, of course, where a lot of the IT companies like SAP are pushing to improve process. And then lastly, you have the consumer dimension. Consumers prove to be very quick to adopt technology now. So we hear an awful lot about smart homes, etc. But in each of those 3 other dimensions, there is a good business pattern. It's just that manufacturing got there first because it was easier.
So Andy, this week, in addition to Davos, you have the NRF largest retail conference taking place in the US. And you see disruption in retail. You look at the market cap of Amazon, and it's bigger than the 10 biggest retailers combined, including Walmart. Will technologies like AI and IoT, is this now a mandate boardroom discussion in retail industry in order to minimize the shrinking impact of brick and mortar retail outfits?
There's actually an interesting way of looking at this that I'd like to say I originated and I didn't. Someone else told me this one. But in retail, they used to say location, location, location was the 3 key assets. These days, people will tell you it's event, event, event. In other words, people are in a mood, a place, or a time when they want to do something. If you can catch that, then you're in the right place to get a sale. So when we look at all of this, the dimension is IoT isn't actually what people want to do. No company steps up in the morning and says, I've decided to be IoT. IoT is a fact of life. More and more devices, more and more of everything has a processor on it and is connected. The value of that is how do you take it back to knowing when and where and how you might make a helpful suggestion that someone will actually welcome. Now, in consumer industry, you don't have to, with consumers, worry about investment programs and payoffs. They go for what works and what feels good. And that's why we've seen it move very rapidly into consumers, just as every other technology wave we've had recently has done the same thing. But it's a fact for companies. And I have a cartoon I use in presentations, and it shows a boardroom. They're sitting around the board, there's a whiteboard, and on it it says, IoT opportunities, discuss. And the head of the table is saying, well, we've got IoT and we've got opportunities, so surely we must be able to do something. And that's quite literally how many companies are looking at the market. And now they're looking, how do I get the target point onto it?
Sure, so very transactional.
Absolutely. So now we have two guys in Davos that are very familiar presenting to board members, and as I listen to Andy, I think about the system design thinking requirement and platform requirement necessary to be able to capture these moments of truth or events. And now responding with system leadership and platform engagement, there are 14 different tracks at Davos: shaping the future of consumption, education, gender at work, energy, health and services, mobility, production. Naveen and Ray, what are some of these tracks that you're most looking forward to that you think will shape responsible leadership in the fourth industrial revolution?
Yeah, so on the track schedule for the agenda at Davos, right? You're definitely right. It's very comprehensive and very holistic in terms of what's out there. And so the technology tracks have been kind of interesting, right? There's still a big Industry 4.0 section, the pieces that are around IoT that Andy's talking about. There's also a big piece about AI, some digital ethics. So those are ones that kind of stood out. What's interesting about it is there's multiple sessions going on. So if you're following the live stream on the World Economic Forum site, you'll notice that certain tracks are broadcast, certain tracks aren't broadcast. So you'll start seeing them tomorrow as the plenary sessions kick off. The societal tracks, there's some interesting pieces really about, redevelopment, helping people continue to do the investments, a lot of these social entrepreneurship that's actually happening. I think there's definitely a lot of interest there. We just walked through the promenade and we saw some very interesting things going on as well. There's that big, the Caspian Sea guys, the Made in India.
Yeah.
So what else were you saying as well?
Well, we saw that women-related forum. That was
TQF.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, on inclusivity, I think that is becoming. I think one more interesting thing I'm seeing is that today when it comes to doing social welfare or anything, more and more entrepreneurs are going. There used to be a thing called CSR, like you would do a little bit of a CSR as part of your corporate profits into it. Now that has gone to a level where it is in profit has gone. The entrepreneurs, the owners of the companies, they are really taking a big chunk of wealth and going ahead and delegating to a particular cause. I mean, at a global level, it's about eradicating malaria from the planet. It is about, fixing up 3.5 million schools around the planet. It's about giving, from our founder perspective, 20,000 teachers were trained in the US. On STEM programs. I mean, that is, you look at the magnitude, what it is driving, which gives a lot more promise to the world than the traditional CSR programs.
Yeah, I mean, definitely a big shift. So,
yeah.
So, hey, I just wanted to touch base real quick too on Andy. Andy's got an upcoming report on the IoT side, and it's got some very interesting use cases. Can you give us a sneak peek real quick, Andy, on what that's all about?
Yes, the challenge is that we talk about the digital economy and have talked about it, and we talked about Agile, and we talked about all sorts of things for quite a long time. But as we're getting there, and as we're getting lots of startups who are coming in around a services economy, and that's the real point here, that it's all about how do I get the right service at the right time, much more than it's how do I buy the right product from a stockist. So when we start to look at it that way, it challenges business models. And there is something called a golden thread around how do you separate out from a business the handful of value creating exercises that it has to go through from all the other bits and pieces like HR, etc., that have to be there, but they don't actually create the value. So this report identifies 4 basic golden threads for business to do business in a digital economy in a different way. And each of them concentrates on them redefining where and how they're creating value and how other players in the marketplace will support them in that so they retain the dominant brand positioning. Now for each there is an example of a company who has already done it. Perhaps the best known one is always Amazon. Amazon is not actually a shop. Amazon is a relationship manager. They manage the relationship with you so well that you always want to buy everything with their help. And I notice now even IKEA is selling through Amazon. That's amazing. So it's that kind of looking at how do you do it, and how for Amazon, all the other shops are selling through them now. So they've become a dominant platform. There's 3 other major strings that you can take, but they all deal with the idea that we actually have an interconnected business economy with a lot of information, a lot of events, and therefore we have a very different digital business model to go with it.
Wow.
Andy, this is Naveen. Hi, I have a question. I mean, these days, as you talked about, how IoT is getting into everything. Why are we not seeing manufacturers, right, packing up sensors into their devices, right? Just like the way Tesla is coming up in the car, they're enabling it with autopilot and everything. The newer models which are coming out with more cameras, and as the law get passed, they will just go ahead and enable it. Why are we not seeing more of that phenomena?
We have much more than people realize, but it's how they're using it that's actually the challenge. A very good example is, I always pronounce it wrong, Natashu, the photocopier and office people. Yep. They did, almost 2 years ago, they tested 6,000 copiers in the field, fully instrumented. And they could actually tell if someone picked it up and moved it, because apparently that's the usual way you stop one working. So the answer is yes, a lot of this equipment is being instrumented. The way they are using it is not particularly clever at the moment. One of the big missing links in this is everyone talks about preventative maintenance and how the devices will tell you what's happening. In practice, when you come down to how do you manage to connect 30, 40, 100,000 devices in the field, there's a weak point. The weak point is known as the final mile, and it's the connectivity of that final piece. Now, if it's something fairly large and expensive and important, you'll do it through 3G. If it's something with very, very small data levels, like a floodgate being open or shut, you can do it with LoRa. Yeah. But having made those very easy generalizations, you're assuming that those services are covering all areas. So the big weakness in all of this is you can put IoT within your own enterprise and improve your management of your own assets. But at the moment, as soon as you go outside, final mile connectivity and companies who manage this and manage end devices are much rarer than you think. So yes, Google, Amazon, Microsoft will provide some kind of consolidation, put it together with cloud computing and forward it. But when you really drill into it, they still can't handle the idea of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands connections and the infrastructure that goes with it. That is the missing link that's holding a lot of things back.
Wow.
No, that's amazing.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So, hey, we wanted to leave you. We're gonna move this out. We've got out here, but yeah, you're looking out into the Intercontinental, the rest of the valley here at Davos. And we'll probably try to do some broadcasts outside too, live tomorrow, if we can get the right bandwidth going on. So that's very cool.
Andy and I would love to be there with you. That's a beautiful view.
I should tell you, Ray, that many years ago, in the early days of video conferencing, there was a video conference from a particular office in Paris, and they put a picture of the Eiffel Tower in the background. And one day they signed in, and the Eiffel Tower picture was upside down. So just make sure you get your window the right way up.
No, it's a real window. You'll be okay. So, no, this has been great. So Vala, while you're anchoring out there, we'll be back on, everybody, at 4 p.m. CAT and 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern. And I believe, who do we have tomorrow as our special guest?
Oh, again, you're putting me on the spot. I know that we will be covering all of the emerging technologies, IoT, artificial intelligence, and much more. I don't have the guest list in front of me, Ray. So, Aubrey, who do we have on the show tomorrow?
Yeah, we have Alan tomorrow, Alan Lepovsky, and then we have Steve Wilson on Wednesday, and Holger, I believe, is coming on Thursday.
There we go. So as you can tell, live. Alan will be looking at the future of work and AI, and Steve's going to be looking at blockchain and privacy. And we're going to get a wrap out and lowdown from Holger as he's looking at it from his European perspective as well. So definitely lots of live coverage here. We're going to have some special guests along the way at the Wipro Pavilion. So if you're there, go to Promenade 63. Where we'll be broadcasting live tomorrow. I don't know, maybe we'll hack out to the Salesforce Lounge and check that out as well and do broadcasts. Maybe they got better bandwidth.
Wipro Lounge as well.
So, and the Wipro Lounge. So Wipro Lounge is, Promenade 63, and we'll see how bandwidth goes and plays. So, but thanks for joining us for this special edition. So, and we'll be back.
Thank you so much, guys. Try not to have too much fun, and we'll speak to you tomorrow morning or afternoon.
No, it is getting serious now.
Yeah. Thank you, Andy.
See you, Vala. Thank you.
Well.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.